Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to The Truth, Part 2, COVID-19 and the Dubai real estate market. So, welcome back. For some of you, it's maybe the first time you're listening to our webinar, but this is our second webinar. We did our first last week, and we got some good feedback, so thank you for that. I hope you all enjoyed it and found it informative and useful. We had so many questions on the last webinar that we thought we would have this webinar as a follow-up, part 2, and we want to try and answer as many questions as we can, although still I think it's unlikely that we will get round all of the questions because there are a lot of questions to answer. So we will move to the next slide, please, Saeed, and I'll just give you a quick introduction before we get into the thick of it. To introduce the panel, we've got Asim Sheikh, Senior Client Manager. He's worked for Espace for over 5 years, worked in both leasing and sales. We've got Artur Akhmedov, Senior Client Manager also. He has been in the Dubai real estate market for 8 years and has actually sold 2 properties in the last 10 days during this lockdown, both over 10 million dirhams, both on Pam Jumeirah, and bucking the trend. He's giving us all confidence that the market is still active and there are still end users out there looking for good deals. So welcome to Asim and Artur joining us for the first time on the panel. We're happy to have you. And Mark Richards. Mark was on the panel last week. Mark is the head of leasing and property management. As I introduced Mark last week, he has been connected to the Dubai real estate market for 15 years, bought his first property in 2005 and then moved to Dubai in 2007. So brings with him a wealth of experience. Myself, I'm John Lyons. I'm the managing director of Espace. I've been at Espace for 8 years, worked in Dubai real estate for 8 years, and prior to that worked in commercial property management and investment brokering in Scotland, where I'm from. So we're going to, the format for today is just to get to the questions more quickly. We'll do less of a market overview, but we will just touch on it just to give you a quick update on how things have panned out over the last week. Then I'll hand over to Mark. Mark will give you a bit of an update, a couple of minutes on the leasing market. And then we've highlighted 5 more properties to announce on this webinar, why we think these are the best properties at Espace right now. What's interesting is the feedback we got from the last webinar. Some people actually, would prefer that we talked more about the properties, and some people preferred the market update angle. So trying to keep everyone happy with a little bit of market chat and then actually getting into the nitty-gritty of what are the actual deals out there. If you are looking to buy right now, what are the good deals? If you're not looking to buy, that's, we understand that there's uncertainty in the market, but at least by us showing you what these 5 properties are, it gives you a good feel for what's actually happening in the Dubai real estate market right now and what opportunities are there to be had. The 5 properties have been selected by Asim and Artur, and Asim and Artur will both give the pitch. So we'll move to that section towards the end. What I would like to update you on as well is that the 5 properties that were selected by Mohammed and Gil for the last webinar, 3 of them have got active offers that are under negotiation at the moment. And 2 of those offers actually came from this webinar. So we are really pleased that people are tuning in. There's active requirements in the market, and they're seeing the opportunities, and then they engage with us, and they're out there putting offers in. So hopefully we will be reporting that 3 of those properties have been sold. Not yet, but maybe in a couple of days that might be the case. So we'll keep you posted on that. Stay tuned to our LinkedIn accounts, our Instagram accounts, and you'll see the updates going in there. If I could move to the next slide, please. As you know, I like to remain positive during this lockdown. Yes, we are realistic that things are tough. There's no getting away from that. I think that the market is challenging. But there are still good deals being closed. And I want to point out, here are 2 properties that we sold on Thursday and Saturday. So just within the last few days, Artur, who's on the panel here, sold the Pam Jumeirah signature villa. He sold that with our colleague Roberto. It was Roberto, right, Arthur? No, sorry, it was Vlad. Sorry, Vlad, if you're watching, it was Vlad. The previous deal that Arthur closed above 10 million dirhams on Pam Jumeirah was with Roberto. So well done to Vlad and Arthur for selling this Pam Jumeirah signature villa, big ticket sale. It's great to see those that transactions take place at that level of the market during a time of difficulty that we're all in. The next property is Original 6. It's a Dubai Marina 3-bed, full marina view, very nice property, great community within Dubai Marina, the Original 6 buildings by Emaar, and that sold on Saturday. So again, this just lets us start on a positive note, showing that the market is still active. There are buyers out there that are looking at this as a time to capture good opportunities. So we move to the next slide, please. So we'll move now into the market update section. I'll just be quick with this. I won't talk about this as long as I did last week. We don't seem to have the next slide yet. Saeed is working behind the scenes to bring us the next slide, but he may have an internet connection issue. Do you have any update on that, Mark? There we are. Okay, Property Finder 10-week analysis. Okay, it's actually an 11-week analysis because we've now added the last week. This was the graph that we showed to you last week on the webinar on Tuesday, and now we've got the benefit of having one further week. What we obviously said last week is we'll need to wait and see how things pan out. It's still very early days, and even today as we sit right now, it is still also early days. So we're still interested to see where things go. We've highlighted there, we put the circle around the last week, and if you look at the impressions, that's traffic. If you remember, the blue line is 2020 and the red line is 2019. It's great to see that the traffic has started to increase again as of last week, and we hope that that continues. That shows that there's more interest in our sales listings. This is sales specifically, so more people looking around for what is available in the market. The next graph, listing clicks. Our listing clicks have gone up, I would say, quite dramatically, given the fact that we're in this lockdown. But it tells me, and maybe I'm wrong, data is great for us to be able to share the data with you, but it's all about how we analyze it, and each person can analyze that differently. So the data is objective, the analysis is a little bit subjective. My own take on this is that as we are now many weeks into the lockdown, people are probably starting to think about when this is going to end. Nobody knows, but I think it feels like it maybe will not be too much longer, 2-3 weeks, even if it's 4 weeks. People are certainly now starting to look at what is available in the market, and you can see the bottom graph there. Our leads are the same as they were the previous week. That's off the bottom from where it was a few weeks ago. So with the traffic and the listing clicks increasing, I think if that trend continues, we will see that follow through into leads in the weeks ahead. And hopefully that is a sign that maybe there will be more activity in the market when the restriction on movement are lifted. Okay, and we'll go to the next slide, please. The next slide is going to be, yes, here it is, our CRM, CREM we call it, our CRM data. Again, it says 10-week analysis. It is now an 11-week analysis because we've added the week. You can see it circled again. New buyer registrations are down, and weekly price reductions have started to increase a little bit, but again, nothing dramatic there. It can be a little bit up and a little bit down. We don't want to read too much into 1 week, but again, sellers, if they want to exit the market, they're starting to recognize the fact that they've got to price realistically. If you're a buyer out there at the moment, you're interested in the best deals. That makes sense. That's what I would be doing if I was buying right now. I would want to see what are the best deals, and sellers obviously have to be realistic in this environment. New listings is down again. So there's not a wave, as we talked about last week, there is not a wave of new properties coming to the market. There's not a rush to the exit. And I think that that is really an encouraging sign. A lot of sellers are happy to sit on the sidelines, wait for this to pass, and then reassess when a bit of normality gets to return. Okay, if we could move to the next slide, please. I'm going to hand over to Mark now. Mark's going to give you a bit of an overview of the leasing market.
Great, thanks, John. Quite a few questions coming through here, guys. So I'm actually managing the questions here for anyone who's wondering. I'm moving those across to John to move those around the panel as he sees fit. So just a quick update from last week. Obviously, I gave you a sort of overview of the last few weeks pre-coronavirus and what we're doing during the lockdown. We've had some quite positive news in terms of the property finder impressions, clicks and leads. I think anyone, you don't need to be an analyst to understand that that graph's heading in the right direction. And certainly now, if we look at the impressions, which as I mentioned last week is when a search is done online, what does somebody see? So if you searched again for a 1-bedroom in Dubai Marina and you scrolled past one of our properties, that would then appear as an impression. So we've seen a 50% increase on impressions, which is fantastic. That means people are out there searching and looking for the properties that are online. But what's more encouraging, I think people that joined us last week, for those who didn't, something I pointed out was the leasing impressions that had fallen on Property Finder had fallen by about 40%, yet the leads had actually decreased by around 60%. Well, now we've seen the opposite trend. What's nice is that these are recorded, so my prediction from last week kind of came true, was that as the market starts to turn, we will see the impressions will increase, but we'll see a more dramatic increase in the leads. So we saw a 50% increase, just over a 50% increase in impressions, and we've seen around a 95% increase in the leasing leads. So in terms of leads that have been generated, it's been quite a big increase over the last 7 days, or basically taking the data from last week. So that's about it from me. I will move over to Asim Sheikh now to discuss the properties. Keep the questions coming through again, and we will address those as we move through the webinar. Thanks very much, guys. Over to you now, Asim.
Hi guys, thank you, Mark. If we get to the next slide, please, Said. Okay, so hot property number 1, it's at Jumeirah Islands type mansion. Now there's 31 mansions in Jumeirah Islands, and this villa actually has the largest plot on the lake. So that plot is 15,104 square feet. It's 5-bedroom, all en suite with a built-up area of 8,500. Now that's bigger than the signature villas on the Palm. Now, the tenant's actually paying $520,000 per year, but can vacate on transfer. And if we just go to the next slide so we can see some more pictures, please, Said. So yeah, the last transaction for this type of villa was in August 2019, which was at 14.5 million. And obviously that had a smaller plot. Now, we're actually encouraging offers at 38% below that price. So offers from 9 million on this villa, which is actually asking 13 million. Now, as you can see from the pictures, and if you know Jumeirah Islands, you'll know that sometimes the plots can be quite disproportionate. You get a lot of plot in the front of the house and not really much in the back. Whereas with this villa, you can see that there's an equal amount of portion in the back, where if you did want to do, you know, a very unique design, you can do. And obviously, or you can just take it how it is. But yeah, you can see from the views as well, it's an amazing villa. So yeah, if we go to the next villa then. Okay, hot property number 2. It's in Victory Heights in Estella. Now, Victory Heights is comprised of 7 sub-communities. Estella is considered one of the most popular. Now, this type is a B type, which is the second largest floor plan that you can find there. It's 5 bedrooms, again, all en suite. Built-up area of a standard one would be 5,176. Now, this one's been extended, so the built-up area is approximately 5,300. It's got a private pool, as you can see, and it's on the golf course. And there also has been some work done in terms of the flooring, and I guess powder room's also been changed as well downstairs. and a short walking distance to the clubhouse. Now, this is asking 4.65, and actually, in fact, if we go to the next slide, so we can see some extra pictures. It's asking 4.65. Now, the tenants are paying 320,000 per year, so we're being encouraged to get offers from 4 million on this, which will give you a net yield of 7.05%, which is, I think, pretty much unheard of right now in this market. So, great villa, one of my favorite layouts personally, and definitely one you should be considering. If we go to the next slide, please. Now, property number 3 in Arabian Ranches, Sahil. Now, this villa is a type 4, again, 5-bedroom plus maids, with a built-up area of 4,909 square feet. A huge plot of 12,000 on the golf course. The owner did some renovations in 2016, so he's got a German hacker kitchen in there. He's got a private pool done by Pool by Designs. And again, he's fully renovated the inside as well. So if we go to the next slide, you can see some pictures of the inside. Now, the last one on the same street sold for 5.4 million a couple months back. Now, we're being encouraged to get offers from 5 million on this villa. Now, what's also great about this is if you look at it with the down payment now, you'd only be putting 1.3 million into this, versus if you was to be buying this a few months ago at the prices that they were then, you'd be looking around at 2.5 million. So this presents, again, great value for money. I'll hand over to Artur.
Sorry, I'm just going to jump in there quickly, Asim. I just want everyone to, I'm sure everyone gets what you were saying there, but I just want to reiterate that point. If it wasn't for the situation at the moment, if it basically wasn't for coronavirus, you would not be able to buy a property like this with 1.3 million dirhams worth of equity. And the reason for that is there's a few things come together to create this opportunity, not just unique to this property, but with other properties. These properties on this street, on Sahil Street, in Arabian Ranches on the golf course, one of my favorite streets in Arabian Ranches. I've sold personally many properties on that street. I'm very much like that location. But those properties, I sold a property on this street for 9.3 million at the peak. And these properties have always been very popular with end users. You used to have to pay, you could never get these properties, for a long time you couldn't get these properties for less than 5 million, the mortgage cap. So you used to have to put a lot more down payment down. Also, quite often you would buy them standard and then you'd maybe have to do the upgrade. So a combination of this property coming down under the mortgage cap, the reason it's come down under the mortgage cap is because the seller realizes that he's got to be more realistic to close the deal compared to what his mindset was just 2 months ago, just 6 weeks ago. He would not have sold this for this level a couple of months ago. Now this has made him a little bit more flexible on where he's willing to exit the market. That allows it to come under the mortgage cap, and also the government have obviously stimulated the market by giving 80% loan to value. So no longer 75% loan to value, you can now get mortgages at 80% loan to value. When you add the fees of transaction in, basically you need 26% of the closing price. And that's what brings you this at 1.3 million dirhams worth of equity. As Asim said, it used to be the case that 2.5 to 3.5 million dirhams worth of equity was needed to buy a property like this, and not that long ago. You're only going back a couple of months. So I think that's a very good property for an end user who's really interested in a 5-bed upgraded property that they can walk into. You also don't need to set aside any money to do upgrades because it's already done. So effectively you're mortgaging somebody else's upgrades, which is another benefit and keeps equity requirement low. Sorry about that. I'll hand over now to Artur.
Good afternoon, everyone. Next slide, Saeed. I would like to introduce you hot property number 4, which is on Palm Jumeirah. It's a famous project, Fairmont Residence. So this is the Imperial Suite penthouse, which is just 2 of them on the market. I mean, in a whole project, and 1 of them on the market. It's 12,000 square feet, massive penthouse with a 7,000 build up, 5,000 terrace, with a pool, full sea view, Dubai skyline view. Amazing property to live. I can strongly say that this is a signature villa in the sky. I mean, it's the same dimension, same size, same built up, beautiful villa. owner occupied from day one, and the owner got it in 2007 at 14 million. On the peak of 2014, we had a potential buyer who was ready to pay 24 million for this property, but the seller was not very motivated, so he rejected the offer. Now, I would encourage an offer from 9 million on this beautiful property. Next slide. The penthouse comes fully furnished. The seller kept it in a perfect condition, very well maintained, always taken care of. He upgraded the kitchen. The rest is very standard. IFA done a very great job those days anyway, so it's a nice marble. It's a good quality bathrooms. So the penthouse, I think, if you compare to what I sold the last penthouse I sold 1.5 months ago with my colleague Sarah, it was a 4,900 square feet penthouse. We sold it at 5.125 million to a European family. So compared to the size and price per square feet for this large imperial penthouse, it's quite competitive, and I guess it's a great deal on the market to go for. Next slide, Said. So the hot properties number 4, we've got a massive price reduction on following property in Marina Gate project, which is recently been handed over. I can say that it's one of the latest project in Dubai Marina, very modern, great facilities. The property it's a 3-bedroom plus made under 2,000 square feet, full stunning marina view, open plan kitchen. Next slide, please. You can see the images here. Floor to ceiling panoramic windows, good quality as well. It's a very nice, very strong developer. They build in UK, they build in Dubai Marina. They have around 6 projects in Dubai Marina. So they have a good reputation, good maintenance. So the property currently is rented for 178,000 till October. So we don't know whether the tenant will renew or move out. However, the identical layout 3-bedroom being sold a few months ago at 3.575. I would encourage an offers from 2.8 million on this beautiful apartment. If you're an investor, it will make you 5% net return for today. If you're an end user, so it's a beautiful property to live in, great facilities, amazing location, direct access to the Marina Walk. I mean, beautiful. You don't need to invest in renovation. You don't need to invest in upgrades. You know that old Dubai Marina, 90% of Dubai Marina projects now are required renovation. They're quite old. It's beautiful property, ready to be moved in. You don't need to do anything. So that's a great deal on the market as well. So I'll pass it to John.
Sorry, just turning my microphone back on. Thank you very much for the 5 properties, gents. Said, if we can go back to the first property in Jumeirah Islands that Asim talked about, I just want to discuss that quickly. I just want to linger on the photographs that show the plot. Slide before that. So the photographs of the Jumeirah Islands mansion. Sorry, the photographs of the Jumeirah Islands mansion. That's it. So I personally think that this is an exceptional opportunity. I absolutely love this property because the plot is massive. And I think that although you can live in that property right now, it looks great. I think the opportunity to do something very special with that property, if anyone's willing to spend a bit of money really landscaping that garden, the panoramic view of the lake, you could have something that takes it into a completely different level, completely different price category, attract a completely different type of clientele. And I think that's what makes that property very exciting. I think someone could end up getting themselves a very, very good deal there and turn that property into something that is very unique. Did you mention, Asim, the thing about Jumeirah Islands, you know, the gardens being at the front versus at the back.
Yeah, I did mention that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, because Jumeirah Islands, a lot of the time you do get large gardens at the front and there's not so much at the back. Whereas with a property like this, it's all of the plot is at the back. And that's what makes this a very, very special property. And to get that for 38% less than the last property that sold in this community in August 2019 is, you know, okay, everyone knows the market's come down, but that property had a smaller plot and sold for a lot more than what this can potentially close for. So I think that's a really good deal. The others are great deals as well, but I just wanted to, that would be my personal dream home. If I was buying at that level of the market, if anyone's interested to know, that's what I would be buying. Okay, we'll go towards the end of the slide. We can maybe stay on this or we can move to the end, but we're going to now go to some questions. We've got lots of questions here, and I'll distribute these to the panelists. If you've got questions about the properties, please feel free to ask, and we can just move around. We want to make this a little bit more conversational. We will try and engage in a bit of debate. My opinion might be different from Asim's and vice versa, so we're happy to open up the debate, and we're happy for you to take part in that debate as well. We're keeping our eye on the questions, so you just need to bear with us while we look through them and ask the questions. One question here about the, let me see, during the hot properties slide, you show the asking price and the offer price. With some homes, the range between the two figures is rather high. How come the dealing margin is so high? So, Arthur, would you like to answer that? Why is it that sometimes the asking price is up here and the closing price is down here, whereas for some properties, the price is much more in line with the closing price? So it's difficult, I get that, it's difficult for people in the market to try and understand where is the true value when one property is asking this and it can close for this, and the next one is asking this and it can only close for that. What's the answer to that, Arthur?
Well, I think it will depend on the motivation of the seller. So some sellers are not very motivated, some sellers are very motivated. So we give an offer price that what we think is right to pay for the property. And we have all evidence to show it to the seller that this is the right price. The seller might not agree, might agree, but fair price for that penthouse, for example, where he's asking almost 30 million and I'm encouraging the offers from 4 million. I think, my opinion, if you look at the past and what we sold, what been sold in that project and on the Palm, so starting as a 9 million, it's a very, very good conversation to start with the seller. That's what I think. There are some buyers, some sellers are very motivated. So they're giving you the price, they're ready to close down, which is very low. And we know if we put at that price, we won't be able to get that price, you know, because there are buyers who will never ever pay their full asking price, and we all know that. Why don't we don't have to hide it. So that's why we have to have a margin of negotiation margin, we call it, a little bit, but that's how it works. That's how it works. Hope I answered on that.
The other thing I would say is that because property it's objectively priced to a certain range, and then it becomes a little bit subjective, and sellers are always going to think their property is worth more, and buyers always think it's worth less. There's always that sort of gap in expectation, and both buyers and sellers, when they come into the market ready, or when they think they want to come into the market and transact, they go on this price discovery journey. Buyers eventually, when they start missing out on offers and they see properties that they previously liked that transact, they start to realize, okay, maybe I need to increase my budget, or maybe I need to be a bit more realistic about how far my budget is going to stretch in the market. Sellers the same. Sellers come to the market thinking, you know, my property is the best property in the market, and they're entitled to go for as much money as they possibly can get out of the market. We're here trying to narrow that gap. We're trying to make the buyer realize that actually you're probably a little bit ambitious, and seller, you're probably a little bit ambitious as well. And it takes time to close that gap. then playing into all of those conversations is pricing strategy. And pricing strategy is something that is a little bit different for all. And we don't tell a seller exactly what they have to sell their property for. Of course, it's their decision to make. Same with pricing strategy. They play a big part in that decision. We advise them, but ultimately they get to decide whether they want to go with an ambitious pricing strategy where there's more margin, or whether they want to go with an aggressive pricing strategy where there's less margin. And I prefer, and I think that it is right in this market, that sellers use a more aggressive pricing strategy, price it closer to the bone. Yes, you're leaving yourself less room for negotiation, but if we can give evidence to the buyer that shows that it genuinely is a fair value for the property, then still buyers are happy to buy. It's not the case that whatever you price your property at, everyone wants a 10% discount. That's not the case. It's all to do with what is the objective fair value of a property. But some sellers want ambition and some sellers are more realistic, and that's why you see the gap between the two. So hopefully that answers your question. I'm going to go to a next question here. What are the government stimulus measures that are confirmed already? Equity, loan to value ratios, land registration fees, discount, etc. I'll maybe answer that one if that's okay, guys. So the stimulus measures, so far it's actually been very encouraging. I think the central bank have done an excellent job. There's about, I think it's about 256 billion dirhams worth of stimulus that has been put into the banking system effectively. And 50 billion of that is direct injection of money into the banking system from the central bank, interest-free, and it's designed to be put there to allow the banks to lend out to small businesses, to individuals, and to give that support to the economy. Another 50 billion of that has been put there by way of minimizing the capital buffer ratio. So banks are always expected to hold capital as a buffer. You can't spend all the money that's in your account. You need to leave some of that there. During times of crisis like we're in now, counter-cyclical measures that get brought in say, okay, we're going to let you dip into your savings pot a little bit. So we're going to reduce the capital buffer ratio, and that's exactly what's happened. So they've done that. The total sum of the package, without going into each bit in detail, the total sum is 256 billion dirhams worth of support, and that's genuinely being felt right now in the economy. And it's very powerful, because what that really means is, if you have had your salary cut, or if you've lost your job, you can phone up or you can write into your bank and you can ask for a payment holiday. They'll probably give you 3 months payment holiday if there's a good reason why you're asking, and they'll add those payments to the end of your mortgage. So really it gives you as an individual a lot of cash flow relief during this challenging time, particularly if you've had a pay cut. Or a temporary pay cut that makes things a bit tighter on the personal finances. And it's measures like that that make a real difference in the market. That's what prevents there being any real distress. And we haven't seen lots of distress coming into the market. I said that last week, and it's measures like this that really help. What's also happened is the loan to value ratio has been increased. So it used to be 75% loan to value. Now it's up to 80% loan to value. So it means you need to put less equity into your deal. What it actually means for your equity is, let's say you were buying a 1 million dirham property. You used to need to put 310,000 dirhams worth of your hard-earned cash into the deal, including the fees, deposit plus fees. Now you need to put 260,000. So 50,000 dirham saving on your cash flow to buy a 1 million dirham property. That means you're actually putting in 16% less equity. So again, it makes property more affordable for so many, and that will bring more people into the market, and it will obviously act as a stimulus measure. So a lot of measures have been brought in, and I think right now we're feeling the benefits of that. That's why you're not seeing this big rush for the exit, and that's why you're also seeing buyers see it as a moment to enter the market. Actually, Asim on the panel here is thinking that maybe after so many years in Dubai, it's the right time to buy. And I think when you heard, Asim, that the mortgage cap changed, that makes a big difference, doesn't it?
Yeah, massively, because obviously now I can, like I said before, I can either stretch my budget or I can put less money into the market. It works both ways. So yeah, it's very attractive for first-time buyers, I think, like myself. And again, you've got some things to consider, but yeah, definitely a good time to get in if you can. If you've got that job security and you've got that financial security, then yeah, why not?
And I think that the interesting thing is that there will be people that are listening to this who completely disagree with that statement and think that it is the wrong time to buy. But the fact is that we can all have our opinions, but Asim has already decided that this is the right time for him to buy based on his personal circumstance. And I think that sort of puts a different angle, because while we can all have different opinions, everyone is entitled to make their own decision. And we're seeing people that are deciding that now's the right time to buy, and we're also seeing people that think that now's the right time to sell. So that's what makes a market. You need buyers and you need sellers, and everyone's got different opinions. It's not an exact science. Nobody has the crystal ball, so we'll see where it goes from here. Again, like I mentioned last week, everyone on the panel last week owns a property in the UAE. Arthur owns the property that he lives in. Mark owns in the UAE. I own a property. And Asim obviously is very active in the market looking to buy. So we all certainly feel that it is a time to be owning property in Dubai. But I do get that other people will maybe be less confident about that. And it's not always market driven. Part of it is, a big part of it is lifestyle. It's not always about is my investment going to go up or down. It's what do I get? What utility value do I get for that? I'll move on to another question here. The question we've got is, hang on, let me look through. When will Dubai real estate reach rock bottom, if ever? Anyone like to answer that? Someone thinks it may be going to go down forever. Hopefully not. Asim, Arthur, Mark,
Asim. I mean, look, it's been obviously on the decline now for the last 6 years. And I think there are some areas for me where I don't see the prices going further down. I feel like a lot of sellers will just take their properties off the market, put it on for rent instead, because there's only so much can go in certain areas. Now you'll see, like, obviously we're doing quite a few higher transactions, which we probably weren't doing as many before, but I think those higher valued villas are coming down a bit more in price now and starting to come a bit more realistic, whereas the villas maybe already in the springs, they probably already hit their kind of bottom prices, and people aren't really going to negotiate much more or reduce their prices much more. So I think it does depend per community and obviously what kind of villa size you're looking at. But ultimately, I don't see it going down forever. I know everyone has this kind of doom and gloom and expect it to just keep going down year on year. But I think we're going to get to that point where, each community will kind of hold its value.
Okay, thank you for that answer. Sorry, Mark, I'm just going to jump in here. Just when the question be answered, I'm just speaking to Mark directly here. If someone asks a follow-up question, feel free for you to ask us again, because Mark's basically transferring me the properties and I'm looking through them. So you can ask us some questions as well, Mark, if you see them coming in real time.
Yeah, sure. I mean, just on that, I think one of the benefits of being here in 2007. I mean, I started my career in Dubai, and shortly after the market sort of imploded, and the general feeling in the market then was that, of course, it was very difficult to understand what market price was. It was very difficult, and of course, we went into a very dramatic stagnant period in terms of transactions. And I'm sure a lot of people listening to this now were here, or certainly the shockwaves were felt globally. So a lot of people were in the same position. Something that's very apparent now, though, is if you look at the trends, we're still in what we would class as an emerging market, and with that in mind, there is a normal cyclical transaction process that happens, and right now we're seeing a downturn for several years. it was very hard for people to see in 2008 and 9 that the market was going to recover. Yet the following years was fantastic for Dubai real estate, and the peak went above where it did early 2008. And I think people get very short-sighted, but the world goes round in cycles, and we can see that from as far as the property market goes back in history, that it does happen. Stock markets crash, they will go back up. Real estate markets crash, they will go back up. And of course, that's everyone can have their opinion on that, but I think most markets in the world, including, you know, Singapore, Hong Kong, have all had dramatic price crashes over the last, you know, 10, 15, 20 years, and have all recovered quite aggressively in following years.
I think on that as well, just on that is, before obviously this whole the pandemic started, if you look at Q1 and the figures reported, it's the highest quarter since 2017. So I think a lot of buyers already kind of had that sentiment anyway, that, you know, now was the time to get in. It's just unfortunate that these events happened, and obviously now it's kind of something played on again, that, you know, is the market going to carry on going down?
Yeah, okay, thanks for that. We've got a question here from David, asking, basically it says distressed deals and repossession opportunities. I think what you're really meaning, I think what you mean by that is, like, what are there distressed deals, repossession opportunities? Do you want to hear about them? We've already talked about some good opportunities, properties that we might describe as distressed in the last webinar and even in this webinar, and that's what makes them good opportunities. But are they, you know, again, the definition of what's a good opportunity to me and a good opportunity to many other buyers in the market might be quite different. Some people maybe want 50% from the last one that sold. And what do you think, Arthur? Is that type of heavily distressed deal available in the market right now, like it maybe was in 2008, 9?
Well, what I can say is everyone understands distressed deal differently. You already mentioned that. For someone to buy a garden home at 8 million, that's a distressed deal. For someone whose budget is 5 million, it's still expensive, and he's looking for a 4 million garden home. So it all depends. It depends on the buyer, depends on what he was looking for before. We can't. Now, I don't have any distressed deals on the Palm, for example. You know, all what we have is a good market price, and we have end users who was looking for those villas, and they just bought them at the right time, right price. That's it. I mean, I'm receiving a lot of calls from buyers who is looking for a distressed deals at 5 and 6 million on Palm Jumeirah garden homes, for example. Yeah, that's I've spoken to probably around 300 owners for the past 2 weeks. To be honest, I smashed the phone because I'm receiving so many calls, and no one is thinking that they will come down to that level. No one is ready to come down to that level. I think Asim was also right. Every community will have their own bottom prices. So I think the Palm already reaching that level, and I don't think anyone else will go below what they're selling now. I have 11 properties being removed from the market as well. People don't want to sell them. They said, we will rent it, we will wait until all these pandemic, the lockdown is finished, and when the people stop viewing, you know. So it all depends. I mean,
yeah, I think this is what I mentioned on the webinar last week is, and I've said this a few times as we've moved into this lockdown right at the beginning, that this is very different from the 2008 moment, because there isn't a high level of leverage and distress in the market. The prices, like Asim mentioned, have already come down for 6 years, and there will always be really good deals in the real estate market, and that's where we obviously try and, as brokers, help out. We try and help identify those great opportunities, and it's not easy to see the good opportunities when there's so many properties available, but you know, a good opportunity, a motivated seller doesn't have to drop the price by 50% really to, you know, to get a deal done. He can go a little bit below what the last transaction was, 10-15%, and he will transact. If that's your definition of a distressed deal, then yes, there are distressed deals around, because there are sellers out there that need to sell. And what we obviously try and find when we're looking for the really motivated, call them distressed deals, that if we were to offer it to investors, we try and understand who really needs to sell, who really wants to sell, and very importantly, who has the ability to transact. You know, if your mortgage is higher than what the market value is, that puts you into a difficult place where even if you want to sell and you need to sell, maybe sometimes you can't because the decision gets taken out of your hands. So yes, there are so-called distressed deals in the market, i.e. people want to, need to, and have the ability to sell. Does that mean they're going to drop 40-50%? No, it doesn't really. It just doesn't mean that. And you go 10-15% below the price, you'll transact, you'll find a buyer, because there is underlying end user demand in the market, and there isn't the same level of financial distress as there was in the financial crisis 10 years ago, or longer than that, 11, 12 years ago now. Okay, next question. What effect does the postponement of Expo 2020 have on the property market? So obviously it's moved from this year till next year. Who would like to answer that question? Mark.
I can. I'll give that one a go, John. Yeah, I mean, I think, look, we've touched on it before. What was and still is going to be a phenomenal event is still going to happen. I think obviously the decision to move it back has been slightly pulled out of everyone's hands, but at the end of the day, we're now sat in a position where the event has a little bit more time to be prepared and get set up as it's required. It's still going to put the eyes of the world on Dubai, and it's still going to be a fantastic opportunity for people to come to Dubai to visit, to see what opportunities there are here. So for me, I think pushing back the expo with what's happened right here and now is the obvious solution, and I do think that we'll see a lot of benefits from it. I think, in my opinion, I think it was being slightly overpitched at the start of how the effects of the market would be. I don't think it was. There was a lot of certainly a lot of speculation when Dubai won the expo, and I think that was you know, not really warranted in terms of prices. There was a lot of people buying just because they thought that this was gonna, you know, have a boom effect on the market. But what isn't going to change is that we have a phenomenal airport and airline here, and there are going to be millions of people that visit Dubai and see what this place is all about, and a lot of those will be for the first time, and that can't help but have a positive effect on the Dubai market.
Okay, thank you for that, Mark. Okay, we've got a question here from someone saying there are many investors and end users looking at the sub 2.5 million. Yet agents still continue to focus on the high end. So basically what they're saying is, look, don't forget the investors and end users that want to focus at the lower price bracket under 2.5. Obviously, we've talked about some high value properties today. On the last webinar, we did talk about some properties at the lower end, and I'll just go through a couple of them now, just so that you know what deals are out there. In the Lakes right now, one of the properties that was discussed last week is a very nice C middle. When I say nice deal, because the price is at a level under, you know, you can close this property for under 2 million dirhams. I think from recollection, the last one that we sold was 2.25 million, and now you can close this probably for about 1.95 million dirhams, and it's a C middle, back to back, in the Lakes, in Zulal. Great community, great price point. I would say that that is a very motivated sale, very motivated. I anticipate that that will sell in the next 1 to 2 weeks. It would rent for 135,000, so you can do the maths. If you buy that at about 1.95 million, you'll end up with, you know, 135 to 150,000 rent, and it will give you a nice net return on your investment. Can you think of any other properties, guys, that are very good deals below you know, at the lower end of the market, lower price bracket?
I mean,
Well,
I've got, yeah, I mean, in our REM, we have the 1E on the park, which I sold earlier this year, which was in terrible condition, hadn't been lived in for a while, and it was, you know, it needed a full renovation, and we sold that for $2,050,000 back in onto the park. Now we have one that's got upgrades, you know, upgraded kitchen, upgraded bathrooms, back onto the park as well, and could potentially close as well. I mean, we're saying we can bring offers from 2 million, but maybe it close for a little bit less. So, I mean, for me, that's a great deal for a 1E in our REM. I think that stands out to me as well.
Okay, great. And also, sorry, Aston, there's a nice 3-bed in Sahil at the moment, back in a good central location.
Yeah, actually, there's another one. So we have a Sahil which has actually been extended. It's a Type 8. And so it's actually got 4 bedrooms instead of 3 bedrooms. And that was just, I think, reduced to 2.55. So we're encouraging offers on that one for 2.4. Again, great chance to get an independent villa in Arabian Ranches.
Yeah, what I would say is, if you do, I mean, obviously we're trying to answer questions on the go within the webinar. We know a lot of the good properties in our head, but we can prepare a presentation. You know, we're pitching the properties that we think that people want to see, but we're only pitching 5. We've got 1,000 properties for sale at Espace, both on the market and off the market. So it would be much more useful for us, or for you certainly, if we could tailor make a pitch for you and say, look, here's the best 5 properties at a 2.5 million and under price range. And we could send that to you in an email. We can share that information with you. We're here to guide clients that genuinely are interested in the market and genuinely want to be active in the market. We're here to guide you and help you see the wood from the trees, because there's a lot of stock out there. The majority of properties on the market won't sell at the current asking price. They're still in the price discovery phase, let's be honest about that. And it's difficult for buyers, investors, end users to really find the good deals. You need to know the backstory, and you need to have a bit of guidance on that, and we're obviously here to guide you through that process. Anything else, Arthur, that you can think of at the lower end of the market?
Well, yeah, I would like to mention about a 3-bedroom we've got in JBR. In Sadaf cluster. It's beautiful property, very well maintained as well. It has a partial marina and community view. The seller has confirmed that he will accept at 1.4 million for a property which is 1,920 square feet. I think that's an amazing deal for a 3-bedroom in JBR, one of the most popular community. Direct beach access, beautiful restaurants. Now it's quiet, obviously, but it's a nice community, largest cluster, amazing house. I mean, it can be vacant on transfer. If it's for investor, the tenant are happy to extend their leasing contract. So it's beautiful property. 1.4 million. I think that's an amazing deal.
Thank you for that, Arthur. There's a question come in here, actually, as we've been talking about the C middle in the lakes, the townhouse 3-bed plus made that can be purchased for 1.95. Somebody's asking, will you buy that, Assam? You're obviously in the market. Is that a property you would buy? If so, why? If not, why not?
So for me, it's all about location. Obviously, with the market being where it is, I'm all about the location. So I want ideally something with a lake view. That's something I don't really want to compromise on. I think when the prices are this low, you need to be looking at what's the best property in the best location at a cheap price versus buying something, you know, that might not really kind of fit that requirement of what you're looking at. So while it's a great deal, for me, does it fit what I want to be living in? No, it doesn't.
Yeah, and I think it's a very good way for us to understand that if your requirement is to buy prime location and get a very high net yield and have a very rentable property, the C middle in Zulal really ticks the box, because the Lakes is a great community. This is a back-to-back property. The plot is not large. The plots are not that large for the townhouses in the Lakes, and therefore the service fee is quite low. Service fees are worked out on the size of the plot. So that doesn't eat into your calculation for working out your net return. So investors would really quite like to buy that property. End users, of course, would also like to buy that property, but it's a really good option for an investor looking for yield, and it ticks a lot of the boxes for that. Whereas Asim is an end user mindset. He's really thinking, I want to wake up in the morning and go out into my nice garden and look at the Springs Lake and have something different that just ticks the boxes. It's not all about if the price is important, obviously, Asim, isn't it? But you want to tick a lot of the boxes.
Of course. I mean, like we said, like with the down payment dropping, you can go either way. You can either put less money in or you can stretch your budget. And obviously that's allowed me to do stretching my budget. So I can obviously try and find something that I wasn't maybe looking at before, but now I can obviously aim a little bit higher.
Excellent, good. It's some good insight there. Hang on. What percentage split is your buyer profile? Investors versus end users. What would how would you see that, Arthur? Are you dealing with a lot of investors, or have you got mainly end users in the market?
Well, I'm dealing with, I can strongly say it's around 75% end users and 25% investors. However, just a couple months ago, it was 90% end users and 10% investors. Now investors are very active. They're looking for good deals. They're looking for desperate sellers. However, end user market hasn't stopped. So the last 2 villas which I sold, one been sold to an end user and another one to investor. So that's how it's worked. I mean, for me, both sides are good, but yes, end users are more actively looking, to be honest, than investors. But investors, around 25% of all my buyers, I can say.
Okay, great.
So another question. Somebody's just asked here, did you say it was a 3-bed in JBR? I believe it was a 3-bed, right?
Yeah, it's a 3+ made. 3+ made, actually. It's a good sized main room as well. It's a nice layout property. I've recently been there with one of my investor. Very well maintained apartment. You know, in JBR, it's not a new community, so the property were stunning. I was surprised that the tenant kept it in such a perfect condition. So yeah, it's a 3+ made in Sada.
That was 1.4 million, yeah?
Say again?
1.4 million.
Yeah, the seller has confirmed that he will sign the MOU at 1.4 million.
Okay, great. The question here, with the current situation, no tenant can be evicted for any reason. What happens if we purchase a property with the intent to live in it? After giving notice officially, are we still okay to proceed in having the tenant leave? So basically, I think actually the way this is worded is a seller is trying to sell his property, but the buyer is only willing to buy it if he can guarantee that the tenant will leave. And they can give official notice, but there's no guarantee that they will leave. What's your answer to that, Mark?
Yeah, I think that we're in unprecedented times in the Dubai real estate market in terms of this. Certainly, RERA and Dubai Land Department have stated that no evictions can take place during this current time. My approach to that would be, and no evictions means even if there is a vacating letter signed from the tenant, and also if the tenancy has come to an end or non-payment of rent is in place. None of those are reasons during the COVID-19 outbreak that you can evict a tenant. What I would always say with something like this, if you're serious about selling your property and if this is a seller that's interested in trying to navigate that, it doesn't mean that people can't move. It doesn't mean that that tenant isn't allowed to move. So I think the way I would approach that, if it was me and I was the seller of that property, I'd be trying to set up a 3-way conversation between myself, the tenant and the buyer, for the buyer to understand really what's the situation with that tenant. Are they likely to move out or are they not? Because even with a vacating letter signed and all the correct documentation from a notary public and Dubai courts, you still won't have the jurisdiction to to kick somebody out. But it doesn't mean somebody can't move out of the property. So you still might be able to find a sensible solution to that. I think it's always about, you know, bringing the people together and negotiating rather than trying to force somebody's hand, because normally that's when people dig their heels in.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mark. Another question here. Wouldn't it be better to reprice, refresh all of your listings? For example, if you're filtering on a property, sorry, hang on, I've just lost that. If you're filtering on a property, you would miss some of these deals as the closing price is much higher than the asking price. So I think that's going back as a follow-up question to what we were talking about, pricing strategy, some sellers being ambitious. What would you say to that, Arthur?
I would advise the buyers not to be afraid to put an offers on any property they like. Ignore the asking prices. Ignore the asking prices. Just choose the right property for yourself. Think what is right price for it. Make an offer. Let us do our job. You know, if the seller is motivated, you know, he educated about the price, you know, we can find a solution for it.
Yeah. So what you're saying is, so you're saying you're advising buyers don't be too particular about the restriction on your budget in the search engine.
Yeah. Correct.
I think on that as well, though, it's just going to come down to the buyer and the agent, and if the agent actually knows their buyer. Because obviously, if I'm working with an agent and I express to him what my requirements are and what my budget is, then hopefully I'm going to be expecting that agent's going to bring to the table, well, look, ignore the asking price, but you know, we can potentially close this at this level. So again, that's just going to come down to who the buyer is working with and how well that relationship is and how open they are with that agent. You know, if you're working consistently with maybe one agent, that'll probably help.
Yeah, so, and I think it's a very good point. The market is difficult because there's a lot of noise around, and you've got to try and navigate that to find where the opportunities are. And obviously, that's where a good broker can add value to your search. It's really beneficial to you if you find the right broker and you buy into them, they'll buy into you. Let them really understand your requirement. What are you looking for? Why are you looking for it? Let them try and get in your shoes, and then they'll start bringing opportunities to you, and they'll explain the backstory, and they'll give you the information. If it's a knowledgeable, experienced broker, they'll give you information that allows you to make your decision. And that's what you're looking for in a broker, is someone that has the knowledge, community expert, and they can understand your requirement and bring you opportunities that they think you might be interested in, regardless of
yeah, I mean, we see it all the time. I mean, I remember I had a buyer who was looking in the green community, and then me and Arthur ended up selling him a 3-bed in JBR. So it was completely different. So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So a few more questions here before we finish up. There was one question here I saw. Hang on. What percentage of your buyers, renters, are currently living in the UAE? Anyone want to answer that? We don't have the actual data, so you'll just have to give a kind of anecdotal guess because we don't have it to hand. We could work it out, mind you.
All the deals I've done this year, so far, all the transactions I've done, all my buyers have lived in the UAE. They're all end users who live in the UAE.
Okay. And Arthur, what about for yourself?
That's more for the off-plan project. I mean, most of those buyers are staying abroad, and they just want to invest in something nice, wait for 2-3 years, come to Dubai. But mainly we dealing with buyers, sellers currently based in Dubai, who knows Dubai very well, you know. So currently, mainly 90%, I can say 90 to 95% buyers are based in Dubai, and they know what they want.
Yeah. Okay. Someone here has asked a very straightforward question. When is it the right time to invest? And I think I'll just quickly answer that, and then I'll hand over to everybody else. It very much depends on your personal situation. What's right for one person is not necessarily right for the next person. And the biggest example of that is it depends. Are you investing with a mortgage? Are you taking a leverage position in the market, or are you investing with cash? The time value of money has to be considered. So if you sit with cash on the sideline and you lose out on your, let's say, 6% net return that you can get from some of these properties that we're talking about, like let's say the Sea Middle, for example, in the lakes. If you are a cash buyer buying that for 1.95 million, it's maybe going to deliver you a 6%, in round numbers, a 6% net yield. I'll have to calculate that exactly, but let's just say 6% for the sake of argument. The market has to go down by more than 6% every year for it to be the right decision for you to sit on the sideline and not invest. If your decision was to sit cash or make the investment. If you decide to sit in cash and not buy that property, and the market goes down 3% every year, it could go down 3% every year for infinity. And on a total return basis, you will still have lost money. It would have been the wrong decision to sit on the sidelines and watch this market with cash in the bank than it would to have bought the property. So that is for a cash buyer, cash investor. For a leveraged investor who's looking at using a mortgage, the equation is different. So to sort of sum up, as an investor, you have to look at your personal situation and you have to understand the time value of your money. And then you have to look at what was the alternative option for that money. If the alternative option was to leave it in cash, then then quite over the long term, you're going to really probably get punished quite heavily with that decision. But each person should look at their own situation and decide when is the right time for you to invest. Anyone else got anything to add to that?
Pretty much said everything that we said before, I think.
Okay, is there any other questions?
There's another one. Yeah, there's just there's one that's come through just to follow up on the property in Sahil. I think the answer is it's a 3-bed, but the property you mentioned in Sahil for 2.5 million, that was a 3-bed, not a 4-bed, right, Asim?
No, it's extended. So yeah, it is a 3-bed, but it has been extended to a 4-bed. So there's a 4th room above, yeah.
And it's an independent villa. It's not a townhouse.
Correct, yeah, independent villa.
Okay, yeah. Great. Any other questions there, Mark?
There's a couple that I sent through to you. There's how is the market typically during Ramadan? Obviously, it's an appropriate question. We're just a few days away from Ramadan starting now. So, gentlemen, Arta, would you like to tackle that one?
Well, we all know that Ramadan goes very quiet. However, I think it will be quite active. If I count the quantity of calls I'm receiving on a daily basis, so it's not getting quiet. It's getting more buzzy and buzzy, and I don't think that Ramadan will stop people from buying the properties and the sellers from selling the properties. Actually, we have started Ramadan a month ago, when the lockdown happened. So that kind of semi-Ramadan position for Muslims, we isolated, we together with the family, you know what I mean? It's like similar to that situation where, so I think.
Do you honestly think that in years gone by that the market, there's this expectation that all of a sudden everything goes on sale, and that if you're selling a property, you put a big sort of 15% sale sign outside the front of it, as if you're selling a TV. I mean, I personally, when I moved to Dubai 8 years ago, Ramadan was bang smack in the middle of the summer, and it was very quiet. It only, as years went by, when Ramadan came earlier every year, did I realize that it wasn't quiet because of Ramadan. It was quiet because it was the middle of the summer, and every year it's got a little bit more active. So exactly. I don't find that last year, for example, I didn't find that Ramadan was quiet. I found that it was actually very active.
Last year I most money, my most successful months was during Ramadan, if you remember, John. So yeah. I think Ramadan is still very active. It all depends on summer, you are right. During the summertime, it goes quiet anyway. People are lazy to go out to view the properties. It's too hot. Some people traveling back to Europe to spend their summer holidays with their family. They're not thinking about buying a property, they're just enjoying the time. But it wasn't about Ramadan, it was about summer. Now it's still good weather. People are happy to view the properties when they have a chance to do that. I mean, I don't think this Ramadan will be quiet at all, as per my vision.
And everyone's got an opinion about Ramadan, but the data that we have that I look at just doesn't support the fact that all of a sudden that Ramadan, everything goes on sale. We don't see more price reductions in Ramadan. I don't see in the last couple of years that we've seen less transaction volume. We don't see less activity. It's shorter days, shorter hours for everyone working. Some people actually prefer it for business. As you said, you had your best month of the year last year because everyone's a bit more free time and you can go meet clients more easily than maybe at other times. So what about you, Mark, in leasing? I don't remember the data supporting it being really quiet during Ramadan.
No, I think what typically happens, I mean, I agree 100%. And when I moved to Dubai, Ramadan was on the other side of summer, and I actually remember my first summer. I unfortunately got caught short in quite a big off-plan purchase prior to that. You know, in my younger, more naive age, I didn't factor in a few things that maybe I would do now. But yeah, the conversations then were that, oh, don't worry about it, it's summer, it's very quiet. And then it was, don't worry about it, it's Ramadan, it's going to be quiet. And then, you know, I've been looking at my watch thinking this is getting on for 6 months, that everything's been quiet. Is there something else going on that we need to factor in? And of course, it was the global crisis. And I agree with you, John, that summer for me has always been a bigger factor. And of course, if you've got children, if you're you know, celebrating Ramadan and Eid yourself, it's perfect timing for you to travel, be out of the country and not do something. On the flip side, you also find that I typically find in leasing and in sales as well that things just flow a little bit different. We get some quite big quiet periods, but then we get some extremely busy periods, and that's just what my experience has shown me, and it's the same in summer. And what people can often do is panic, and they see that there's been a 2-week very slow period and not understanding that there's probably going to be a very, very busy 1 or 2 week period to follow that. So I think that just the flow of leads and the flow of people looking is a little bit different.
Yeah, okay. So we've got, thanks for the answer. I think we've pretty much run out of time now. So we'll finish up. There's one last question just came in here. Don't want to leave questions unanswered. I don't know if we necessarily managed to get to them all, but we tried to cover them with the general responses that we gave to other questions. One question here says, can we expect more than 50% bank financing for non-residents in the coming months, as current percentage is restricted to 50%? The honest answer is, we don't know. We don't know.
You can get up to 60% with a good profile even now, up to 60. It's difficult, but it's possible.
It's possible, is it? Okay, good.
Yeah, it's possible.
So the thing with the mortgage market is there's over 100 banks. There's, I think, thousands of mortgage products in the market at any one time. They're all competing with each other, bringing out different rates. We use our mortgage partners for up-to-date advice, and we put our clients in touch with them. They can have a quick 5-10 minute chat on the phone and usually work out if they can save anyone any money or get a better product, and they're the better people to speak to about what's happening in the mortgage market. It would make sense for them to look at that. That would obviously also act as a stimulus for the market. Whether they will go up dramatically, I'm not sure. Time will tell. Hopefully they do, but not too much. We don't want to see too much risk entering the market at the same time. Okay, is there any other questions come in there, Mark? Is that us?
Well, no, they're still coming in, so it depends how long you want to keep going for. I mean, I guess now we're probably an hour and 15 in, so do we answer these outside, or would you like to do one more?
If there's one more, you can ask away. Find the most difficult one, obviously.
Got quite a few more, so it's up to you guys.
One to go.
One to go. Find the most difficult one.
Right, here you go. In the UK, our best quarter is normally Q1. As you have the Ramadan period, how would you describe a normal year plan, non-COVID-19?
Okay. January, for the way that we book our deals, so again, each company might book deals differently. January is not, okay, I'll tell you our hot months. February, March, April, and May, hot months. September, October, November, hot months. December is probably our lowest month. And well, I'd say July, August, and December are our 3 lowest months. So basically we start a little bit slow. By the time we get to February, we're up at full pace. February, March, April, May, full pace, full throttle. June starts to quieten down a little bit. People start to get ready for summer. July and August in the sales market, we notice that things are down, but you don't notice that mark. There's a totally different cycle for leasing. July and August in sales, things are down. And September comes back around the middle of the month. We really start to notice activity starting to rise. By the time we're in October, November, full throttle all the way through until about halfway into December. And then it starts to quieten down again for the festive season and for New Year. So that's roughly, but in some of our best months ever have been in July and August, I think, for leasing. Is that right, Mark?
Yeah, we are normally pretty busy. I think a lot of people get the opportunity. Typically, a lot of families leave at the end of the school year. Quite often, one of the parents and the children will travel, and one of the parents will stay here and work, and it gives the opportunity to go out and look at properties. But like I said, we normally have a bit of an ebb and a flow of when the actual transactions get signed up. But yeah, summer is normally quite busy for us. But so yeah.
So I would say actually then we're pretty similar to, I think the reference there was to the UK. To the UK market, we're probably on a similar cycle. As I said, I don't see Ramadan being a big hit. It was when I came here, but as I said, that's because of the time of the year that Ramadan was falling, not now. So if Ramadan was to happen now and coronavirus wasn't here, I don't think the market would be slow. It would be full pace, full throttle. Okay.
Yeah.
Am I right about that, guys, or am I wrong?
I agree as well. I think there's ready buyers who can't wait to get out once this is over. So I don't think Ramadan will play a major part this year, not being in summer. So let's see. Time will tell.
Okay. Thank you, gents. That is all the questions we've got time for. We've run over time. We will do this again. I would encourage you, if you're watching this and you didn't get the answer that you were looking for, we're all willing to have a conversation on the phone. If you are genuinely thinking of selling, buying, renting, if you're a landlord, you want property management options, we're all happy to have a chat with you on the phone. Of course, we'd have to spread that out among the team. We've got a company of about 95 people, so there's plenty of people that are experienced and can get on the phone to you and discuss your requirements with you. So we're here to help, and we remain positive, and we hope the lockdown is over shortly. But we don't want them to finish it too short, because we like the fact that it's having an impact. So we keep smiling. Hope you all are keeping safe. Enjoy yourself as much as you can on the lockdown, and we look forward to doing some business with you now or when the restrictions are lifted. Okay. Bye. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye-bye.